Okay, welcome guys to the second recording of the Android Study Jams. If you missed the first recording or are just joining us, please click the link in the description or the top right hand corner to watch that video before we get started. Today we will be building out a basic layout of an app, and it is part 3 under unit 1. So let's get started. So today we're going to be designing a birthday card app, and we'll be adding an image and some text to it. So to get started, to take this code lab, you're going to need to have Android Studio running, and you should know how to run it on an emulator or on your computer. Today we'll be building a birthday card app, and we will be adding some text to it. So to get started, just follow the instructions in the code lab here, and links in the description, by the way, and go ahead and create the app using the template given to you here. I've already created that in Android Studio. Run that app and just make sure it says hello world on the screen. Now, before we add anything to our app, I'm just going to take a moment to explain to you. The view in the design view in Android Studio. So starting out from the very left edge, that is your project structure. Currently we are in Android view, but we can change it to project view, which arranges the folders and files the same way your computer would, so Windows Explorer. Next, we will be using Android view, which is a convenient way of arranging all your files and resources in a way that makes sense for Android, so it's easy to find everything. We'll be mainly using this view for the duration of our course. Next, on the very left edge, you're going to see quite a few tabs, actually all around the edges of the screen. Those open different panes that do different things. We will be learning more about them as we go on with our app. And from the project structure, we have our palette and component tree. Our palette is basically where we drag in all our components, so our text views, our buttons, our image views, and all other views. Everything in Android is a view or a view group. So view groups are containers for views. So an image is an image view in Android, a text is a text view in Android, and you'll notice the top option here is common. So these are the most commonly used views in Android. But if you go to text, you'll find that there are actually a lot more different versions of your text view. So there's plain text, there's one for passwords, numeric passwords, email. All this makes it very easy to do some of the things, so you don't have to write special code for a password field, for example. It's all done out for you. You don't have to check for validation on an email field to make sure someone has typed in an actual email. Buttons are also there. We have image buttons, normal buttons, and we have a lot of them. We have a lot more. We have radio groups, switches, floating action buttons. In widgets, we have the image views and other views. We have web views, progress bars. You learn more about these as you go on building your app. You don't have to use them all, obviously. You just use the ones you need. Next, we have our layouts. So the most common one currently being used is the constraint layout, and we will be using it throughout this course as well. But the other layouts, this is the linear layout, frame layout, and others. We have containers like spinners and recycler views that contain other views. That's why they're called containers. You'll also learn more about this later on. And then helpers and other stuff that you will have to explore on your own. Then we have the component tree. The component tree is basically a list of everything that has been added to your design. So if I dragged a text view to the design here, it appears in the component tree as well. If I drag the button, that will also appear in the component tree. Great. Then after the palette and component tree, we have our design view. Now this is where you actually look at your designs for your app. So whatever you dragged and dropped would appear here. Let me just fix this this render error. Okay, so there we go. It is all fixed. So whatever we dragged onto screen would appear here. Now there are two screens. The left one, the white one, is your design. That's how your actual app looks when it's run on an emulator or device. The right one is your blueprint. This one helps you with designing your app. Some things are easier to see on the blueprint than on the normal design. So I like having them both. You can turn one of them off using this option here. So I could either have just the design, I could have just the blueprint, or I could have both. There's also that option, force refresh layout. You saw in the beginning the layout wasn't displaying my views correctly, so I had to force a refresh. You can also after next to that view switcher, I'm calling it that. Yeah, select design surface. You can also design your app for, see how it looks in landscape or portrait. You could choose to choose a normal a UI mode. You can have it say on a card dock, a desk dock, or a television. That doesn't seem to be doing much right now. I'm sure you'll figure it out. The next one is night mode. So night mode is a big thing these days. So Google has been helpful enough to include design for night mode, so you can see how your app looks while in night mode. You can also create different variations. You can create a landscape variation so that Android doesn't just stack your views however it feels best, but has a specific view whenever landscape mode is on on the phone. You could create a tablet variation. You could create a variation for different versions of Android if you wished. Next to the orientation selector, you have your device preview. So you can choose to see how your app looks like on multiple screen sizes and resolutions. I personally use the Pixel 4 XL because it's closest to what's relevant these days. 6.3-inch display, high pixel density, and a tall screen, the aspect ratio. So I use that. Next, you can see here you have your Android version. So you can choose which Android version you're going to use to design your app in. I leave it at on the latest one, but you might want to have it different. Here is where you choose your app theme, and then this final one is for locale. You can have translations for your app in, say, French or Spanish, and this is where you do it by clicking edit translations. Below that you have view options, so you can choose to show all constraints and margins. Just leave this as it is. You could have auto connect parent, that's for the constraints, and this is the margin for the constraints. You could have this to clear all constraints, and infer constraints, which basically Android creates constraints for you. We'll see what constraints are in a bit. And then you have guidelines. To the right of everything, you have your attributes pane. Your attributes pane is where each widget you drag onto the screen has different attributes, but all of them have IDs, so that's the very top thing, and declared attributes. So whenever you drag anything to your design view, some code is created in XML for it. So what declared attributes are basically just the code that comes with it. So your layout height, width, if it's a text view, the text for it, and its position. Then you have other attributes as well. This list changes depending on what widget you've chosen. So this list is different for a button, for an image view, and for a text view. You could also choose to have split view, where you have your code and your design. You could decide it's faster for you to write out the code, so you just write out the code and then see how it looks later on. We'll be using design view purely, no need to worry about XML. Okay, so that is a quick tour of your Android design view. Your layout files are stored in the res folder under layouts. So activity_main is the layout for the main activity, and it's stored in the layout folder. Okay, now moving on. Now we are going to have to add some text to our app. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete that button first for now. So I've dragged on some text, and we're going to change that text to happy birthday. And that's fine, but now we have an error because this is a constraint layout. We need to add constraints. Now you can add constraints in a couple of different ways. The first one is by hovering over this circle and dragging it to the edge that you want to constrain it to. So I drag it to the top to constrain it to the top, and I drag it to the bottom to constrain it to the bottom as well. In a constraint layout, your view has to have a vertical and horizontal constraint. So it's still showing us a warning, an error, because we haven't constrained it horizontally. So I'm going to do that by clicking this plus in our attributes pane. I'm going to click that plus to add the right constraint, and then one for the left as well. These numbers are your margins. I'm just going to set them to 0 and 0, so then it's kind of in the, so now it's smack in the middle. Okay, so now we would run our app. I'm not going to do that in the interest of time, but it would display our happy birthday text, and that in itself doesn't really look good. So we need to do a bit of styling to make it look good. So per the design, we are going to use the same text view. How do you delete constraints is by clicking on a constraint and hitting delete on your keyboard, or you could come down here. You see that little bulb? When I hover over there, there's an X. When I click that, that constraint is also deleted. So now we are going to change our text to happy birthday Sam, and we're going to give it some margin because right now it's right up on the edge of the screen. So we're going to give it a top margin of 16 and a left margin of 16. Great. Next we are going to drag on another text view. This time we're going to put it bottom right corner, and notice how if I hover right around the edge, these guidelines appear. So that's showing me that it would place it right there, but still I need to have a constraint, so I'll give it a right constraint and a bottom constraint. I will set them both to 16 dp and change its text to from Emma. Great. So now we have our birthday message. Next, what we want to do is style the text. We've added it, but it doesn't look appealing at all. You wouldn't use an app that looks like this, so let's make it look a little bit better. Now, first thing we're going to do is change the text size. So with our happy birthday text view highlighted, we are going to scroll through the attributes pane and look for text size. So here it is. You can also search for any attribute up here using the search bar, so just search text. We want our text size, so here it is, and we are going to set it to 36 SP. Now SP is a unit of it stands for scalable pixels. So in other design, say you're designing for the web or something else, you would usually use pixels to define the size. But then, because Android runs on a multitude of devices with different screen sizes and resolutions, 5 pixels on a Google, no, I'm not going to use the Pixel device. 5 pixels on a Samsung S20 is different from 5 pixels on a Techno or a Huawei. So on a higher end, higher resolution device, 5 pixels would be smaller inside on screen. It would appear smaller than if it were on a lower resolution device like a Techno and Infinix. So scalable pixels is a way of translating our 36 pixels to what would look like 36 pixels on other screens. So our app would look about the same on all devices our app would run on. There's also a different unit called DP, stands for density independent pixels, and for the same reason, because our app will run on different display densities. So you have 720p devices, 1080p devices, 1440p devices. That screen resolution, the higher the resolution, the chances are the higher the screen density. Pixel densities. Pixel density is the number of pixels per inch on the screen. So the higher that number is, the more sharp the image would look. But also, if we use, say, 36 pixels, because of the higher resolution on, say, a Samsung S20, those 36 pixels would appear a lot smaller than on a lower end device. So it would fill up the screen of a smaller device, of a lower resolution device, and yet it would appear very small on the higher end one. So we use DP and SP for our measurements here. SP, we generally use it for text, and DP, we use it for things like buttons and image views. Okay, we'll do the same for the Emma text and give it a text size of 36 SP. Great, so now it's a bit more legible, but it still doesn't look so good. It's this ugly gray color. So the text view widget has the text color attribute, which is right here highlighted. We want ours to be black, so I'm just going to start typing black. So we have at color/black, which is what we want. Press enter, and we'll do the same here. I'll just type black. So colors in Android are stored in the colors.xml file, which is in the res folder, in the values folder. So all the colors we're using for our app appear here, and we can give them name. The black color we've given it values, and we've given them names so that they're easier to reference. So instead of typing F00000 for black, we just say black color/black, and we have a few purples here defined for us already. We could give them literally any name. You'll see how to add colors to your app as you progress, but for now we're going to use the black. And okay, so our text looks good and our text looks big enough. our app looks great for now. We'll see how, but it's still missing something. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to skip through this code lab and go ahead to the next one, which is adding images to your Android app. So again, we're going to continue from the app we've just made, and now we're going to use the image view. Now to use the image view, first of all, we need to download the image we are going to use provided for the course. So there's a link in the code lab, just click on it and download. I've already done that, so no need for me to do that. And now we're going to have to import it to our app. So to do that, we go to Resource Manager. It's up here on the menu up here. It's under Tools and Resource Manager. You could have also clicked on the very left edge of the device. We click this plus sign on the edge and say import drawables. Then we would look for our image. So mine is in downloads and it's called Android Party. So I'm just going to scroll and look for it. You could also copy the address, the URL for it, and paste it here. Not URL, the path, and paste it here, and click OK, and then click OK again. I'm not going to do that because I've already imported that image actually, but after you clicked OK to import, it will now appear in your drawable resources. So you have in your resource manager, you have your drawable resources, your colors, your layouts, map, which is your launcher icon, your strings, and your navigation. You'll find out about the rest as you progress. I'm saying that a lot. So now we need to drag an image view to the screen. So I'm going to drag one out from the palette and kind of try to center it. And then I will choose Android Party. If you're not seeing it, you can also search for it. The search feature is very helpful. Then click OK. Notice that it has appeared on the screen, but off to the bottom. So I'm just going to drag it. Notice that as I drag it closer, it kind of snaps to the edges, and great, there's our image. And it has, yeah, now we've added an image, but then the trouble is that it still doesn't look nice at all. I mean, there's white space on top and on the bottom of it. What we want to do is have our image fill up the screen. So to do that, we're going to select the image view and use an attribute called scale type. And then there are different types of scale types. Basically, this is telling Android how to manipulate your image. So you can have it centered inside, which is kind of what we already had. We could do fit start, which pushes it to the top of the screen, or fit end, which pushes it to the bottom. We could select center, which will blow up our image and try to center it as much as possible. We have matrix. I can't see what matrix is doing exactly because of the pattern of the image. Then you have fit XY, which will stretch your image to fit the screen in the direction that it's not fitting. Then fit center, which is kind of like center inside. And finally, center crop, which zooms in and keeps the aspect ratio and fills in our screen. Great. So now we've added our image. Our app should be looking great, but it's not. Our image views have disappeared, and that's because the order in which you drag views onto your design actually matters to Android. So if you look here in the component tree, we've dragged our image view last and it's appearing on the bottom. And this is a bit backwards, but the bottommost item on your component tree is what appears on top of your screen. So the image view is sitting on top of our text view, of our text views. So if you look at the design, the blueprint, which is why I like having the blueprint around, you see that our text views are actually still there. They're just covered up by the image view now. Now I forgot to add the constraints to our image view as well. Let's just go ahead and add them all. It is a constraint layout after all. So I've constrained it, but notice how the image view is covering our text views. What we want is our text to be on top of our image view. So to do that, we just click in the component tree and drag our image view all the way to just below the constraint layout. So now our app looks the way we want it. We could run this and it would look beautiful on our display, on our device rather. So there you have it. This is how you can add text and an image to your Android app. I've gone through this without following the code lab step by step, but you will have to do that as you go through the course on your own. And please do take time to go through the course on your own and take the quizzes to test your knowledge. I'm always around to answer any questions you may have. And yeah, just send me a text in the group, or tweet at me, or send me an email. I answer on all channels, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And practice with this. Try adding a button. We'll be doing that in the next video, in the next session. But try adding a button and see how that works. Try moving the images around. Try resizing. Maybe try a different image. Play around with this and yeah, see what you can do. Maybe change the text or something. So this video we did not do any coding at all, but it's good to first design then code. So that's why we did it this way. That's been it. Thank you very much for watching. You can watch the next recording by clicking on the one of the M cards on the screen, or in the link below. I'll have all the recordings linked in the description, and you could click the top right corner and see all the other videos I've uploaded. That's been it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.